Good drawing skills.
Oh boy, I must have been in high school then. Okay, this is the first thing that I learned to do. I soon learned to pedicate. Of course, I also would wink and try to whistle. Didn't work very well, did it? And pretended to cough and say, "No, no," very distinctly. He learned this by hearing me say it often when he played with the oven door. "No, no." And he would ride on his little walker, or rather he would fly in it, must have been going fast, and come up to the stove and take hold of the oven door handle. Of course, I said, "No, no." When I was 8 months old, I said "boy" and "buh" for bread and butter. Oh, I didn't remember when I said that. When I was about 1.5 years old, I began to say uppata for potato. I couldn't say potato, I said uppata. And chichi for chickie. I would have chichi for chickie. Pie for throwing me up in the air and catching me again. And baba for the powder box. And one day I came running into the keen, which was kitchen. I didn't know what he meant, so I asked him where it was. He led me to the cedar chest and raised the lid. There were his clean panties. So that's what he meant. I had my first buggy ride with Aunt Edna. We went to Grandpa and Grandma Hanning's. I guess they were still out on the farm then yet. I don't remember them being out on the farm, but they wasn't. His second buggy ride came at the evening of March 9th, 1928, so I'd have been about 6 months old at that time. We drove George and Joe, that was the horses, to the storm buggy where the roads were bad, over to Grandpa and Grandma Henning's as they were having a birthday supper for Uncle Orville. I tasted my first ice cream on Sunday, April the 22nd. That would have been about 6 months old too. And more on April 27th at Gertrude's school picnic. I guess that was Gertrude Leffrin. She probably taught the grade school where I went, Browns Grove. I guess I didn't remember that, but apparently she did. He wore his first print-colored dress to Grandpa Henning's on Saturday night, April 28th, 1928. 6 months old. He had always wore white. Me. September the 7th, 1928, wasn't quite been a year old yet, was quite an eventful day for Darrel in 3 ways. His 5th tooth came in, and the 5th one, they all went away. I don't have 5 left. He waved bye by himself for the first time, and I started crawling. Almost a year old when I started crawling. Well, I was slow. I had no baby buggy when I was small, and I was 3.5 years old before I ever rode in one. It was Easter Sunday, 1931, over at Vera's. Bill Weimer's, John Allen's mother and Viola were all there. After dinner, we girls went out for a stroll, and it was muddy, and I had no overshoes, so we pushed him in a baby buggy, which Vera had borrowed from Trude Glauser. On Sunday morning, April 5th, 1931, as I was peeling potatoes for, Mom talking, peeling potatoes for dinner, I missed Darrel. Ralph had gone to Stanford, and Lauren was asleep. I looked high and low for him. Finally, I called Grandma Henning and told them to come out. As they came through Stanford, they saw Ralph at the restaurant and told him. In the meantime, Mrs. Henry Pantlin had heard me call. They had the party line, so you listened into what somebody had to say. Mother and Henry and Howard had gone out to look for him. They found him at Henderson's, next place west, on the other side of the road. That'd be a half a mile down to Henderson's. When they soon drove in with him, followed by Mother, Viola, and then Ralph, Darrel said he had gone down to see Nellie, that was Mrs. Henderson, and the dog went with him. However, he promised never to take any more strolls down the road, and I don't think I did, without asking me to go with him. I learned very easily and very young. When I was a little past 2, I could say several little nursery rhymes. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. Little Jack Horner sat in the corner. Jack and Jill went up the hill. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet. Ding dong dell, Baa Baa Black Sheep, sing a song of sixpence, and others. When I was 3 years old, I could tell stories better than a good many adults. He knew the stories about Little Red Riding Hood, the 3 bears, the 3 pigs. Why is there always 3? The 3 bears, the 3 pigs, the 3 billy goats, and I don't even remember that one. The 3 rabbits, I don't remember that one. The rabbit and the fox, and others. I started to manure to Sunday school when I was about 3 years old. I always enjoyed having me read his story, the Sunday school story lessons to him, and he begged for more. On Monday, July the 13th, 1931, but almost 4 years ago, Darrel said, "Mama, please tell me a story where I get big like you, and then I'll tell you some stories. But now, while I'm a little boy, I'd like to hear stories so well. Won't you please tell me one?" Of course, he got a story. The next day he said, "Please tell me a story, Mama. When you was a little girl, I used to tell you stories. Didn't I?" Darrel always loved to go to Sunday school at Manere, but occasionally we would go to Stanford Christian Church. He was just 4 years old, and we were coming home from Grandma Gwen's. "Where would you rather go to Sunday school, Stanford or Manere?" I studied a moment and then very soberly answered, "I guess I must like to go to Manere the best because I always feel so sad when they say the goodbye song." Christmas 1931. I'm glad my mother's here tonight. I want to make her face shine bright. Oh, this is what I said. Oh, let's start over again on that one. I'm glad my mother's here tonight. I want to make her face shine bright. I'll speak my piece so loud and clear that she will think I'm very dear. Don't you, Mother? And here's one I said at Manere, 1932. I take Doc, was a bit 3 years younger, up with me. My baby brother is too small to speak a rally piece for you at all, but I am speaking for him too when I welcome all of you. And at Cavell, 1931. I don't remember it. There's one I do remember that I spoke at Cavell when I was 3 years old, 1931. Children, all this is it. All you folks are gathered here, happy-hearted, gay, but it's not alone for children because it's everybody's day. I remember when I was in grade school, my teacher would give us piano lessons. I never went to a piano teacher, but she would give us lessons. What little I did know how to play was on that piano. But I played Far, Far Away, and they said the farther away, the better. Tell me the tales that were dear to me then. I don't know how it goes. I don't know. Okay, this house here was the one that my dad was born and raised in. And I don't know what year they built the house that Joanne lives in now, but I remember when he was raised in that, and I was in it a few times. There was an old bicycle he had there, one big wheel in front and a little wheel behind. You remember seeing pictures of those? This is June the 5th, 1945. Dad and I, we were out plowing corn when the storm came through, and we came in from the field, and I had that 36 John Deere 8 tractor, and Dad was on the Alice Chalmers, and we went in, and we see this big black wall coming, so we went up there, and Dad stayed kind of inside the gate, but he stayed sitting on the tractor. I crawled underneath that John Deere tractor. It had a corn plow on it, but I crawled under the corn plow and everything. I wasn't going to get it. And then the storm came through and took the barn down and the old house there, garage, and it just scattered out. A lot of us across the road there. And Jerry was just a little boy, and he was in the house with my grandma. And so I went down, cleared the path, and went down and got my mother, lived where Brad does now, the home place, and she came up. But anyway, my grandfather had tripped over this. Oh, it was a little boxer. It stepped up into the crib, and he tripped on and fell. And he looked out and, oh, I'm ruined. He said, I'm ruined. Grandma Henning on Flicka. That was Bonnie Mae's horse. She stayed with my mother and delivered. Was a water girl, and her horse name was Flicka, and I remember that. Grandma Henning. She was more of an outgoing, friendly sort of person than my Grandma Glenn was. I stayed with my Grandma Henning sometimes. And I remember when I was real little, and I was laying on her kitchen floor. We didn't have electricity yet. And I'd look up and stare at that light bulb. Oh, isn't that wonderful? You get light from a light bulb. You don't have to light a lamp or something. I still remember laying there on the floor and just admiring that electricity. I think we got electricity in '39 now. I had a diary, I don't know, maybe it's in your possession. And it says in there, big letters, when we got electricity today. I was in grade school, yeah. I remember Art Anderson's to come over to play cards. We didn't have even a gas lamp. We had kerosene lamps. He was hard to see. They had what they called a gas thing. It burnt gas and had mantles on it, and it would be not as bright as electricity, but it would be a lot brighter than the kerosene lamp, and he could hardly see it. I remember that. Dad had put a gas engine on a washing machine, and how that worked, I don't know. But she had what was on the east porch. Of course, Brad's closed that in. It was east porch, and she would have that, and she'd have to put water out in the machine. And she had to have it in a screened-in porch because of the gas fumes from the gas engine on it. And I remember when she would get done washing, I never filled the machine, but I had to carry that out in a bucket and throw it out in the chicken yard, the water. I don't think we even got a furnace right away. Probably wasn't too long until we got a furnace. We had a round coal stove in what would have been the dining room, one next to the kitchen there now, about where that table sits over there by the wall. We used to have a cream separator. You put the milk in, separate the cream. That was a hand turned, and that got electric. That was one of the first things, I think. Probably wasn't the first, but towards the beginning of the electrical age. Dad helped Orvid Lancaster wire that house. Back, I think before that, when they had their own electrical plant, some of the wires were exposed. They just had knobs, white knobs with the wires running. I think I remember that, but not where I lived. Not where I lived.
Where would you say a lot of his skills came from? Would you say he just picked it up from his dad, school? What would you credit?
He didn't go to high school. So he had to be, I don't know, the wiring, I just don't know where he got that at. Back then, everybody was jack of all trades, I guess. And now then you have specialists. I think that is Ruth. We had Joe and Ruth as workhorses, and had another horse too, but that was the pair I would drive. And that's the one that I think that when back in the 40s sometime, I would each has the corn, and they hired me to take the horse down and go down through the field and get the wildcat because we were going to have an inspector come out. Ruth was a white horse, and Joe was white too, but I didn't ride Joe. It was Ruth. We raised hay on the farm, yeah, because the cows. Dad had cows too, and so we had to have hay for that, yeah. Of course, we didn't have balers back then. It was all loose hay, and you had to pitch it on a way, and we had what's called a hay fork come down and grabbed it, and then it would take it up in the mow, take it over, and you'd trip it, and they would have to push it back. 2 men in the mow doing that. And well, it's kind of story about that too. Dad had me driving the horses one time, and when they were when they'd set the fork in the hay on the wagon, they would holler, and I would drive the horses out, turn them, and come back, and get ready for the next time. And I kept turning right turns. You know what that did? That twisted up the rope. And they began to have trouble. So I learned that you go down to this end, you turn right, and when you get back here, you turn left. No, you're bringing back a lot of memories. And that and this.